little bit out. A whole host of community leaders that are here today, leaders. I've got 3 pages. Please have a look at our website. Our website honours you all and thanks each and every one of you, Tim Hammond. Bill Gaynor's here today too with his good wife. Bill and I are friends in the RSL. Again, the RSL has played an enormous part in making sure that Israel, and in particular Beersheba, is acknowledged. Enough acknowledgements. Ray, just before I do start, I'm meant to acknowledge the Honourable Julie Bishop. She can't be here today. They have the Liberal Party launch. I understand you have a brief message you wanted to give on behalf of Julie, or would you just simply like me to apologise? You certainly. Come up quickly. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Bob. But before I give that very short message, might I say it is an honour and a privilege to be here with you. Such an esteemed group of wonderful people who feel, as we all feel, that Israel deserves and should have its state of Israel. But Julie Bishop would love to have been here. You're aware that she has other duties today, and another important day for her. And I have been asked to provide, as I say, a very short statement on her behalf, and that is that she supports the Friends of Israel, the aims and ideals of the Friends of Israel, and will continue to support what it is that we are not only doing today, but will continue to do into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray, and thanks for that message. So why are we here today? Simply put, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And the State of Israel and Australia have a deep and enduring friendship that inextricably links the modern history of both our nations. You've heard Calvin talk today, those of you who heard his lecture earlier on. And it's interesting to see that their modern history reads almost like the history of 2 brothers, 2 sisters, whichever way you want to, in this current politically correct world. 2 people who were born out of troubled beginnings of diversity, hope, aspirations, and cultural collision. And I think it was Voltaire that once said that only true pain only comes when two cultures collide. Today, when I acknowledge the traditional custodians of Australia, we acknowledge a prehistory of over 40,000 years. In acknowledging Israel, we acknowledge over 3,000 years of recorded history, and a history that stretches back into antiquity, a history that's acknowledged and reflected in virtually all of the great religions of the world, and a kindred history that embraces both Israel and Australia as nations. Those 2 nations whose forefathers in modern times, were joined in 2 world wars, and that were fought to establish and perpetuate the ideals of freedom and democracy. The 2 world wars saw an emergence of a new world order, the birth of countless new nations, not just Israel, countless new nations, and the re-emergence and the recognition of countries whose historical claim to legitimacy was reaffirmed and mandated by the world community and the United Nations Assembly. In the last few years, I've had the great privilege of visiting 2 such nations. Firstly, my father's birthplace, the Czech Republic, and Israel. Both have legitimacy in the eyes of the world community, and both countries now, thankfully, are democracies that embrace all of their citizens. My father fought the Nazis as a member of the Free Czech Air Force. He returned to his country only to see his freedoms again snatched away from him by a totalitarian state. Very few Czech Jews returned. Most of them perished in the Holocaust. And after the slaughter of 6 million souls, modern Israel was born out of that time of horror, as those that were left realized the dream of coming home. Coming home after 3,000 years of persecution, murder, and genocide. And home to join those 500,000 who never left, that remained to carry on that endless story that stretches back into antiquity. Home to put in place a bastion of democracy in a new world order. and home to those basic freedoms that my father fought for, hoped for, and actually eventually found here in this great nation, Australia. But home in Israel, unlike Australia, has meant almost 65 years of fiercely clinging to the hope, the legitimacy and the mandate which the United Nations, with friends such as Australia, gave them. Now, despite the lessons of history, some seek to sweep them all away and sweep away Israel as a democracy. And as a democracy, it's on the front line of a global battle against terrorism that denies them the right to simply exist. And it challenges the very fabric of all of our nations, all of the democratic nations. As the former Spanish Prime Minister José María Aznar said recently when launching the European Friends of Israel, if Israel goes down, we all go down. We all know there are issues and arguments that defy logic on both sides. But as my father used to tell me, never judge another man unless you have walked in his country's footsteps. Some 2 years ago, I did just that. And what an amazing experience that was. And I know Ray Halligan came with me. We went to Israel to see for ourselves. The first thing you learn in Israel is there are no secrets. There are no secrets. They are as critical of their own government as what we are of ours on times, I've got to tell you. All is laid bare, but the constant struggle to survive is so evident. Despite all that, never have I experienced such national pride, and that from everyone, Arab, Jew, Bedouin alike, all of them. They all have a fierce pride in their nation. Not in being Jewish, not in being Muslim, not in being Christian, but just simply being part of a nation where they have freedom and democracy. All they wanted to do, virtually everybody we spoke to, and Ray will attest to it, virtually everybody we spoke to, all they want to do is live in peace, work, play, bring up their kids, and have a decent job, the same as you and I. They are imbued with an air of optimism and enthusiasm we could all learn from, quite frankly. And I think as Golda Meir said in 1974, pessimism is a luxury no Jew can allow themselves. Above all, they yearn for peace and the basic freedoms that we often take for granted. The second thing I learned was Israel's respect and enduring friendship for the Australian nation. As I said earlier today, I stood on that hill overlooking Beersheba, and Calvin Crombie related to us the story of the charge at Beersheba. The hair stood up on the back of my neck. I could hear the horses. I keep saying, but I could, because I felt I was there. I felt I was there with all of those souls that didn't come home, that became part of that land. On that same day as those Australians so far from home were reading the Declaration, British Prime Minister Balfour was reading the declaration that created the basis for a modern Jewish homeland. 20 years later, the Australians were back there again. But in that battle, they were fighting for the very essence of freedom. Since then, that young nation has clung to its very existence, supported by their friends against a growing tide of hate that has become a global battle between those that love life and those who glorify death, railing against the very basic freedoms that our model of democratic government represents. And it rolled onto our shores, and we watched with horror as those towers fell. We wept with the families of those Australians innocently murdered, along with other friends in the Bali bombings. A bombing that brought home to us what our friends in Israel endure on a daily basis. That tide of hate must be turned. And as Victor Hugo said, all of the forces and the armies of the world are not as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And that's why we're here today. It's time to stand up and simply help a friend. Thanks. Help a friend in need, a friend who, like all friends, sometimes we don't agree with. Sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they stumble along their way. But true friends take that into account. What they do and what is to be endured through our friendship, because our friendship is enduring, and it's to be endured simply because Israel, like us, as a friend, believes in the true meaning of freedom and democratic values. The time has come for us to reinforce that friendship and bring a balance of sense and sensibility back into it. Now, I'd like you today to join with us in that spirit and stand up for three basic beliefs and tenets. Firstly, Australia as a friend and indeed as a nation, must support Israel's right to defend all of her citizens, be they Arab, Jew, atheist, Christian, Bedouin, whatever. Suicide bombers and rockets don't discriminate. They kill everybody, Arabs and Jews alike. As a nation and individually as Australians, we need to defend Israel's right, secondly, to live in peace and security. They are on the front line of the terrorist war that seeks to destroy our shared democratic beliefs and values. Thirdly, as a friend, we need to ensure that the true situation is fairly and accurately reported in the Middle East. That's the reason I joined this organisation, quite frankly, and put up my hand when they asked me. In any conflict, as an American senator once said, the first casualty is truth. Albert Schweitzer said, truth has no special time of its own. Its hour is now, always. And through a vibrant ongoing program of forums, and this is why we've invited you here today, through a vibrant ongoing program of forums, discussions, presentations and balanced information, we will seek every opportunity to counter the constant vilification and help build pathways to resolve conflict and hopefully bring a lasting peace to the entire Middle East. In this day and age of mass media, immediate mass media, we need to put back the balance. We also need to walk, as my father said, in another's shoes before we condemn or praise them. Walk with us, please, and maybe, just maybe, we can today, light a little candle that illuminates a way forward to an everlasting peace in the land that nurtured and helped bring forth the truth and the freedom that ultimately we in this nation enjoy. Thank you. I said sometimes we stumble, sometimes we disagree. And that's our right as a friend to say to people, we hope you always get it right, but we're all a little imperfect sometimes.